Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Demystifying Your Tech Careers. I'm just trying to understand how this whole world comes together. So I'm Tuan, CEO, co-founder of ScholarJet. And today we have Brian Moseley from Amazon. What do you do at Amazon?
I'm a partner success manager.
Sounds good. No one know what that means. I have no what that means. No idea what that means. So let's dive into it. So today we're gonna talk about Brian's role, learning about his journey from all the way back in high school, thinking about ways how he think about careers path, and then his college experience and how it leads to where he is now, working at Amazon. So let's start off. Tell us about yourself, Brian. Especially during your high school careers. What were you doing? Anything that's special? What were you thinking about in terms of where do you want to be when you grow up?
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this topic with you, Tuan. It's something that I didn't get a lot of. There weren't podcasts when I was in high school. I graduated in 2003. The internet was just coming online. I remember the day I got my Facebook account. I was in college and sitting in the computer lab and a bunch of people. Yeah, I was on the MySpace, the whole deal. And to think of how far we've come is really cool. And to have, sources like ScholarJet where you can get free information and start to navigate your career path is really valuable. So I grew up in St. Louis in Missouri in the Midwest, which is a long way from Silicon Valley and the tech hotbed of Boston. But a lot of my friends growing up had very traditional jobs where their parents, they were firefighters and police officers and accountants. And I didn't really know tech existed. It was just kind of getting online in the coasts and moving more towards the Midwest. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. All I knew, and this is going to sound really selfish, but I knew I wanted to make a lot of money. I didn't want to be like a millionaire or anything, but I started to realize early on through my jobs, I got my first job out of college and I was making like $45,000 a year, which I thought was great at the time. But then I realized, there were these things I wanted.
Wait. Sorry to interrupt. So during high school, I mean, you were saying that a lot of you were being influenced a lot by your community, your friends, and your parents. So they were telling you just like what type of jobs they were telling you to get?
Yeah, they weren't necessarily telling me to get a job, but they were like, go to college.
Okay.
College will solve all your problems. All you got to focus on is going to college, get your 4-year degree. And I'd say, what should I major in? They're like, doesn't matter. Just like go to college and get your degree and don't try to take on too much student debt. So, I wasn't I didn't have a lot of great role models in high school that had the job that I thought I wanted. And so, I had no idea. My father was into computers and he actually gave me some really good advice. He was a systems engineer for Monsanto. And he told me when I was like 16, the internet was coming online and he said, if you can learn how to design websites, you'll be a millionaire. So I started figuring out code and I realized I wasn't that good at it. But, that led me to pick my major in college.
Okay. So where do you ended up going to college and sort of like, did you go to college in state or out of state?
Yeah, I was in Missouri. I went to an in-state college and it was a lot of it was due to where my friends went, where I was going to, I didn't have to take a bunch of student loans. The cost of education was a lot lower back then and in-state. And also they had a good ice hockey team. I was an ice hockey player in high school and decided I wanted to play club in college as well. So I just picked the school that I wanted a large school. I wanted a school with a good hockey program, and it really didn't have much to do with my education. It was really more focused on, it was more social.
So how big is that? I mean, the reason why I'm asking this is because I feel like there's a lot of history behind people who are into sales and customer success type of roles. They have a sport background. Why do you think that is?
I think there's a level of competition that sports teaches you, and sports teaches you a lot of really great lessons about life. I think I had some really great coaches growing up, and the community, at least on my teams, were great. You get to hang out with your friends, you get to be active. There's this element of competition, and I think it's just naturally ingrained in a lot of salespeople.
Gotcha. And so here you are in college, right? You were just going through the motion. I'm guessing, what major do you pick and why?
Yeah. I signed up for computer science,
Okay.
and, I had like good grades in high school, but I went to a public school. I wasn't super challenged, and I never felt like I was really giving it my all. I didn't,
Mm,
there was no purpose behind it. Right. I was
yeah.
like getting good grades, but I didn't know why I was getting good grades. They were
Yeah.
like, get good grades so you can go to college, so you can get a degree. But it's like, why? Like, what's that going to do? It never really clicked for me, but I did it.
Mm.
I kind of followed the path. And so I started computer science. I got into like my first calculus class, and I think I got the only D I've ever gotten in my life was in calculus. And
Oh my God.
I realized walking out of that class, like, I'm not a computer science guy. I'm not going to be an engineer or anything.
Yep.
And I switched to computer information systems.
Mm,
But so I graduated with a degree in computer information systems with a minor in computer science, which I thought was well and good. But I graduated in 2008 when there was a recession, and
mm.
the job my perfect dream job when I was 21 out of college was work in an IT department, be like a manager, mid-level manager, make $70,000 a year with like full benefits, and help a company with all of their IT. That's what I thought would have been my dream job out of school.
That's that's weird. I wonder why. Like, what gave you that idea? Do you have any prior experience before that?
I mean, I was always like good with computers. So
Okay.
in college, I started a small website design company, I guess you could call it. It was really
Mm,
myself and my roommate. He was a graphic designer. This was again back in 2008, where not a lot of people had websites, especially not in the Midwest. So
yeah.
we'd go to pizza shops,
Hmm.
and we'd sit down, and we'd eat a pizza, and we'd go to the owner. We'd say, "Hey, I really liked your pizza. I tried to find your website online. We couldn't find your website." He's like, I don't have one." We'd say, "Well, we do websites. Here's my card. They're $1,000 a piece." And we sold, I don't even, like 20, 25, 30 websites
Wow.
that way. And it was just, for rent and for beer money
Mm,
and stuff back then. But that's where I kind of got this sense of that I could work in tech. I
yep.
could be entrepreneurial. I could do something that didn't involve sitting at a desk all day.
That's really awesome. So that's also similar sort of like pattern that I've seen. People just starting businesses when they're either in high school or in college and have the ability to just take that risk. Like, why do you have that? Like, why do you think you have that mentality within you, the confidence to do that? Because not a lot of people, like when starting businesses in high school and in college, a lot of my friends back then, they're like, this is a giant like leap of faith, and they have no idea what they're doing. They're so afraid of everything. So yeah, what gave you the initial push?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people. So first of all, there wasn't a lot of risk involved. Like, I wasn't putting up my own money. I wasn't fundraising or anything. I wasn't
Mm,
trying to raise a seed round. There was really no risk. I looked at it as only upside. I looked at it as I could spend some time. I was providing a service that people needed at the time, which were just a really basic,
mm,
HTML WordPress website, and people could pay me for it, and
mm,
that could just be an additional source of income. That's one thing I was always interested in, and saw in my friends' parents early on when I was a kid, is the most successful people I knew, or the people that got to go on the cool trips or that had the cool cars, they had multiple streams of income. They were never just
mm,
working at a job. They had a little bit in real estate or the stock market, or they had a side business, or they were always doing something. So if you find yourself at a young age, if you're in high school and you're babysitting and you are trying to mow lawns for extra money, and you are cleaning pools, and you're constantly trying to find two or three different ways to make some money, and you don't want to
mm,
just, you're not satisfied with working at a fast food restaurant or an ice cream shop, it's probably a good chance that, I think sales might be a good motivator for you, because you're very much incentivized to sell. You're incentivized to go out, and
mm.
and that's a good sign that you might be a good fit for an entrepreneur path or sales role.
Gotcha. So at one point, the idea hadn't come into your head from your experience that you wanted to be this IT manager role type of person. And so what exactly happened? Like, how do you get your first job? What's the process when you were going about applying? And like when you were like, for me, like when applying for a job, you would visit job boards, sending in your resumes and all that. Like, how's that experience like for you? And, was it easy? Was it hard? Like, what was that like?
Yeah, relatively easy in 2008, if you can believe it. Even with the recession, I graduated and I got an entry level position at a IT help desk for a manufacturing company in my college town, and I was pumped because all my friends weren't having success, and it came. I had good grades and I had a good resume, CV, and so I think I found the job through an alumni job board and interviewed, and that was it. I don't remember it being that difficult to get the job, but when I was there, I was there for about 6 months, and my boss brought me into his office, a really nice guy, and he sat me down after 6 months and said, Brian, what do you really want to do in life? And I thought about it. I was like, no one's ever really asked me that before. And he's like, I'll tell you why I'm asking. He's like, because we're at a point at 6 month, your 6 month mark, where we've got two options. One option is that we create a custom performance plan for you, and we have weekly meetings about your performance, and we try to get you up to speed a little bit faster. Or the second option is you sign a resignation letter today, and I'll pay you for 2 weeks, and you can go pursue your passion with something else. And it was a very nice way of him saying that I wasn't doing a very good job as an IT manager, and I was essentially being asked to leave. But I didn't really see it that way. When I was 21, and I was like, wow, you're going to pay me to not come into work for 2 weeks? That sounds pretty good. So I took the deal, and then, as luck would have it, a friend of mine was starting a company in 2008, and it was a custom ice hockey stick company, and I was involved in hockey, and I had an interest in sales and marketing. So I became employee number one of that small startup. So my point is, it was sort of the universe's way of telling me, hey, don't go down this IT role. You're not an IT guy. There's a different path for you. And I listened to it.
That's very interesting. So let's go back to that decision point, because I think it's very important, because there's a lot of people who would actually fall into that path, and instead of taking a 2 weeks leave full pay, they would actually want to stay, right? And so the question is, one, like, what the hell do you do that you're essentially being fired? And two is, what do you think would essentially allow the other person to make the opposite choice if there was an alternative universe?
Yeah, well, I can say I don't want to jump too far ahead, but when I eventually got the job at HubSpot, and that was my first sort of real tech SaaS sales job. SaaS is software as a service. I loved coming into work. I loved the people. I jumped out of bed every morning, and I couldn't wait to check my email. Even on vacations, I would jump into my email, and I would be excited because I felt like I was helping customers. I felt like I was very needed, and I had a lot of purpose to my role. There was like a mission that we were all kind of in together, and I didn't have that at the IT company. So I think a good way to understand your compass and your barometer is internally is if you don't jump out of bed every morning, and if you kind of if you don't look forward to meetings with your boss, and you don't look forward to going in, and you're like, you hit the snooze button, and you're like, oh, I don't want to go into work. And maybe a lot of people feel that way, but there is probably a perfect job for you. I'd like to think that there's a perfect job for everybody, and a job that they can get really excited about. And if you don't know it, if it's not like, heck yeah, I want to go into work, then it might not be the right role, company, or industry for you.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, not a lot of people have the universe work for them. So luckily it happens for you. So let's start where we left off at this hockey company.
Yeah, so the startup was great. I got this was another really important turning point in my career. And if we're talking about advice or things I wish I would have told myself 10 years ago, it would be find a mentor. And what I mean by that is find somebody that you look up to, that you aspire to be, and then be somebody to that person worth helping. Meaning, find a way. That person needs help with something. Maybe they need their lawn mowed, or maybe they need a website, or maybe they need marketing advice. Entrepreneurs aren't good at everything, and they always need help. And a lot of times they need help for free. So if you find somebody that you really like what they're doing, you really like their company, spend some time, research them, research their career, try to get coffee with them, and just be somebody worth helping, because
Mm,
most people, what you'll find is most people are very willing to help, and most people are nice and they're approachable. And you just need to be, you need to be somebody that is willing to pitch in, and you have to be willing to work for free also. I think that's something that, I don't know, I think people talk about it, but if you're trying to get $100,000 sales job right out of college, and you want to be a field account exec, and you want to call on cool customers, and it's just not going to happen right away. Lower those
mm,
expectations a little bit. Anything worth having is worth working really hard for. And the
mm.
only sense of gratification that I've ever had in my life have come after I put a lot of sweat equity into something. So the startup was, oh, go ahead.
Well, so there's two parts. Let's define sweat equity. Sweat equity means basically working for free for someone in order to hope for a good results and outcome without actually having to get paid. So,
Yes.
so something you mentioned in this regards was that, well, when you say finding a mentor, and a lot of people, when thinking about that, they're like, the people who they look up to are people like celebrities, right? And so
Ah,
immediately people is like, how the hell am I going to reach out to these people? And so let's reframe this. Let's try to figure, so like who should they reach out to? What type of
yeah.
person prove enough credibility, and what ways are they going to be able to reach these people? Because one, you can't find celebrities phone calls,
It's true.
phone
Yeah.
numbers, or like DM them or anything like that. So what are some ways that you would recommend people to be able to?
Yeah, that's a great point. Mentors they don't fall out of the sky, and it is a kind of a broad term. I'm thinking back, as you were saying that, I'm thinking back. I didn't really know he was a mentor until we were already working together.
Yeah.
So the way I found him, again, it's all like, people say follow your passion, and I kind of agree with that. Gary Vaynerchuk talks a lot about it, of just like he was interested in wine. He has a really cool story. He was interested in wine. He just started talking about wine for free on a web show, and now he's a multi-millionaire with a media company and everything else. But he started following what he was passionate about. Me, I was passionate about ice hockey when I was 21, and I didn't really know much else. I'd been playing since I was 5 years old.
Mm,
And then, so I was at the ice rink, and was talking to this, he was a chief marketing officer for the NHL. He was a chief marketing officer for Anheuser-Busch for like 12 years. He was the
mm,
chief marketing officer of like the SeaWorld, the resorts and everything for Anheuser-Busch. He was just a very well-connected, professional, successful businessman. And I just became really curious
mm,
about how he got there. I think that's probably my other tip, is just be insanely curious.
mm,
Try your best to understand, find somebody that you respect and admire, and then try to understand their path. And that's why I think podcasts like this are so important, because I could have never mapped out when I was 18 or 21 the career I've had, and I still look at myself as being very early in my career. But
mm.
I have gotten to work with some really cool companies and some cool mentors and managers. So there's no like single source that I can
Yeah.
give you, but like, if there's somebody on YouTube or like Instagram that you follow, not a celebrity, not somebody professionally that you admire the work they're doing and their message, and you feel like your values align, and you feel like um, they're doing something that you wish you were doing,
Hmm.
just hit them up and ask them, tell them the truth. Say, hey,
Yeah.
I just graduated college. I don't know what I want to do with my life. I really admire your path. And I understand that your path, wasn't an easy one. Um, can you give me some pointers on how to get into this industry? Can
Mm,
you give me some help and some guidance around who I should talk to? Or do you know anybody? Like, I'm willing to work for free. Like, how can I help you? That's a
mm.
really great way. It's really hard for somebody to say no
Yeah.
to an email or a video message like that.
That's awesome. That's a good tip. Cool. Let's move forward where we left off. So you're working at this company, and
Yeah, so I worked at this small startup in 2008. Obviously, the economy was terrible, and we couldn't ever seem to really get momentum. But
mm,
so I worked there for 2 years, decided that the startup wasn't going to happen. And I think they shut
Mm,
their doors soon after I left, but I
mm,
decided I needed to leave and try something else. I learned a ton from that experience though. It was tough. It was hard. It wasn't rainbows and butterflies. It was a grind. We had some good times for sure. And there was like a lot of wins. I learned a lot about sales and marketing in that
mm,
experience. It was almost like an internship kind of thing.
mm,
But I learned how to deal with loss, and
mm,
I got a lot from seeing my boss, the CEO of the company. He was resilient. He was gritty. He he was a little unconventional in a really positive way. He saw things that no one else saw. And just being around somebody like that on a daily basis, you learn a lot through osmosis. So
mm,
I would definitely say a big tip is um, don't worry as much about what your role is early on in your career. Don't worry as much about what the company is. Really try to find a manager that is going to guide you and give you a lot of encouragement and teach you something tangible. That would be the number one thing to look out for early in your career, is like, how do you find somebody that is willing to spend time with you and teach you something that's a meaningful skill, like sales or marketing or
gotcha.
engineering.
So what's next?
Yeah. So after the startup, I worked for a marketing agency and
Okay.
doing sales, and I didn't love it because it was like a very relationship type sale, meaning
Mm,
I would take prospects out to dinner and take them to hockey games and baseball games, and a lot of what I sold was based on price, and there wasn't a
mm,
lot of differentiation. And frankly, I wasn't that great at the relationship sale. I always felt
mm,
it was a little phony, and I never wanted somebody to buy from me because they liked me as a person. I wanted them to buy from me because I helped them learn, or I helped teach them something about their business that they didn't know before.
mm.
So the agency experience was great, and that's what led me to HubSpot. So I was trying to figure out ways to make the agency better, and HubSpot had a lot of really great content. And I started
Mm,
watching their videos and reading up on their culture and reading up on kind of what their product did. And so I learned. I went on LinkedIn and I found I had a connection with one person at HubSpot, and I sent him a cold LinkedIn message. His name is Alan Perlman, and I still attribute him with helping me get into HubSpot. I flew out there to Boston to interview on my own dime. Interviewed with a couple people, and ended up getting the offer at HubSpot, and that's what kind of really changed my life.
geez. So okay, let's break this down. So what you did was a cold message, right? This is a lot of the thing that salespeople do all the time, and maybe even CEOs of companies. So what is a cold message? A cold message is, I guess, you want to reach out to somebody and you want to configure the right message that would elicit a response from the other person. And I guess you
Yes.
got that right from this person. So do you have any tips on how can somebody write a, a, a good cold message, whether it be through emails, on LinkedIn? What is it that would actually get them to respond?
Yeah, there's a concept in inbound sales called always be helping.
Mm,
And I think my cold message, maybe I should go and try to look up what it was specifically, but I think the message it's simple. It's do some research.
mhm,
Look at the person's LinkedIn, figure out what they care about, understand what their role is, and then ask for advice and recommendations or suggestions.
mm,
That's the best advice I could give. Don't ask for a job.
mm,
Say, hey, look, I really love your company, and looks like you've been a very successful customer success manager at this company for the last 2 years. Like, that's specific. It shows them that you actually did some research on their profile, and this can all be done on LinkedIn.
mm.
And or go on their Facebook or go on their Instagram and like try to figure out what they like. Compliment,
Yeah.
like, hey, I saw you have a dog. What's his
Yep.
name? Like try to make some personal connection, and then say, hey, it's like, just be honest. Say, look, I'm starting out my career. You look like you've really got some stuff figured out, or I really want to. I've learned a lot already about HubSpot or whatever the company is you work for, or Amazon. I'm looking for some advice and suggestions on how to best get my foot in the door. Would you be willing to spend 10 or 15 minutes with me and help talk me through it? I think you'd be really surprised if you send a note like that, most people will spend some time helping you, because the way they got to where they are is the exact same way that, they're asking you, they ask somebody else in their career, and they feel this need to kind of pay it forward.
You'll be surprised as to how many people are afraid of doing this, right? They're so scared. They're like, oh, what if they don't want to do this? I ruin my chance of getting my foot through the door. And the fact is, like, you're talking about one of the best point about the way to get hired is to just get to know the person, get to know the company beforehand through another way, rather than just applying to the job directly when no one knows who you are, essentially.
So I can say I've only gotten one job from applying through a job board, and it was my very first job. After that, I've never gotten a job through a job board. And I don't know. I don't know if people still get jobs through like Indeed and stuff, but the best way, here's another thing that a lot of people don't know is most companies have a referral bonus for referring somebody. So there's an incentive for these people that you're reaching out to. It can be anywhere from $500 to $3,000 per referral to get somebody hired. The guy that got me hired or referred me to HubSpot, he got a $1,500 referral bonus. So
wow.
there was a major benefit for him to spend time with candidates. And that's how most high growth tech companies are hiring. They spend a lot of time and almost exclusively go through their referral candidates before ever talking to candidates that apply through the website.
Wow, that's awesome. So, okay, you end up at HubSpot, and like, how's that experience like, and what made you decide to leave HubSpot and then move to Amazon? So, like, thinking about your career path and where you want to be, essentially.
Yeah. So my career path, I never really thought in the terms of like, people talk about your 5-year plan. I never really thought about a 5-year plan. I kind of just looked at it as like, how's the rest of this year going to go? And then what do I want out of the next year? I kind of just looked, 15 to 24 months in advance. What was really nice about HubSpot is there was a lot of structure, and it was very transparent for how they promoted people. And it was really easy to understand where you stood in the company. And that's what's another really nice thing about sales, or technology sales specifically. You're tied to a number, which I think a lot of people are afraid of that concept of like a quota. I know I was like,
what is a quota?
A quota is a set revenue number, target or goal that you are trying to hit on a time limited basis. It could be a monthly quota, a quarterly quota, or an annual quota.
Gotcha.
And so it's your goal. It's basically how much the company is trying to predict that you're going to sell in a given month. So, the misconceptions about the quota is they're not as scary as you think. The way I like to describe it to young people who are thinking about getting into sales is, imagine if you come into work every day and you do what's required of you, and you follow the training path, and you are average, you will hit 100% of your number. Wow. The quotas are set up so that 70% of the people within the company will hit their quota. And think of it that way. All you have to be like, are you in the top 70?
C.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And that's how I used to think about it with college, right? Like, if you show up to a class every day, you don't miss, you don't skip a week, and you do your homework, and you're like, you at least turn things in, it's really hard to get an F or a D in a class, unless it's me in calculus. But that's how I think about like quotas and getting, people are so worried, oh, if I miss my quota 1 month, I'm going to get fired from this job and I'll be out of work. That's not how it works. I don't want to say it's hard to get fired from a sales job in tech, but if you find a place where you're able to just do the average amount of work, you'll do decently well. And then if you're the type of person that really likes to go above and beyond, then you can make really good money.
So what makes you decide to transition from HubSpot to Amazon?
So there was another company in between there. So I actually went from HubSpot. I was a sales rep for 2.5 years, and then I was a sales manager for a year. So I ran a team of sellers. And then the VP of sales, the vice president of sales for HubSpot, person that started the channel program at HubSpot. A channel program is one of the ways a technology company goes to market. Most technology companies go to market two ways. They sell through a direct channel. So they have direct salespeople that are picking up the phone and calling customers. And then they have a channel, which is a group of partners, which is third-party businesses that help resell their software. So for HubSpot as a marketing platform, their channel was marketing agencies. So the VP, Pete Caputa, who founded the HubSpot Partner Program, he became the CEO of a small startup, like a 30 person startup called DataBox. And Pete and I were very close. Pete is the second mentor I had in my life, who was very influential. And I really had and still do have a lot of respect for Pete. And I attribute a lot of my success to him. He was very influential in my career, and he's just a really great human. Taught me a ton. So everybody should try to find a Pete Caputa out there. But yeah, when Pete came to DataBox, I was interested in what he was doing. He was trying to build a company from scratch, basically, and I wanted to be a part of that.
And during that process, how did that transition to Amazon? Because this is the juicy stuff that the viewer are waiting for. It's what is it like working at Amazon with your role, right? And so it's great to learn how you even got here. I mean, it's such an incredible journey. And I think I'm starting to get a theme here. One is to go the unconventional route, and two is
don't do what your teachers tell you. Yeah.
Yes. Get a C, you'll be fine. And then the other piece is having great mentors, right? And so
totally
transition from DataBox.
Yeah. So at DataBox, things were going great. I was there for about 2 years, and I had a friend in San Francisco that worked for AWS, and he kept trying to get me to apply for this job in Boston. There was there was a lot of direct sales roles, but this was kind of a specialty role in the channel. And there's just not as many people in partner or in channel as there is in direct sales. And so I'd spent the last 6 years of my career in channel. I had a pretty specific skill set and background, and he just kept asking me to apply for this role. And I got some other good advice from my first manager at HubSpot. Her name is Danny Herzberg. I'm pretty sure she was the one that said that don't decide whether or not you want to take a job until you have an offer. So what I mean by that is, I think a lot of people, get requests from recruiters, or they're like, should I apply for this job or not? The time to make the decision is when you have the offer in front of you. I would encourage people to, even if you're not 100% sure you want the job, go through the interview process. Take the time to study, to read up on the company, to get interviewed, get feedback from those interviewers. You learn a lot from just going through the process. And if you get the offer and the job wasn't quite what you wanted, or it wasn't as much money as you wanted, or it wasn't quite the role that you thought it was, or you didn't get a good vibe, feel free to just walk away and say, thanks, but no thanks. I'm going to continue to explore other options. I think a lot of people don't even give themselves the chance to go through the interview process, because they're like, oh, I don't want that job, or they say no before they even have the offer in hand. So that's the mentality I took to Amazon. I'd heard a lot about their leadership principles. I'd heard a lot of great things about their hiring process. One of their leadership principles is hire and develop the best. And I heard their process was really interesting, and it was a little intimidating, to be honest, but that actually kind of attracted me to it. So I locked myself in my room for about 2 weeks. This was in like December of 2018. And I just studied. I watched every YouTube video I could. I reached out to recruiters. I hired a private resume and interview coach. That's something I couldn't have done, earlier on in my career, because they're expensive. They're like $150 or $300 an hour. But when you look at the ROI of getting a job versus spending that $300, it's kind of some of the best money you'll ever spend. So just some things to think about.
So cool. Now this is the meat. You're at Amazon. What's your day to day? How is it like working for a tech company that's super big, and sort of like, let's talk about the mundane stuff. Like all the details that you would probably never thought to talk about. Let's talk about that so then people know exactly what is it like working at the company. But also let's talk about the exciting stuff that you're just like looking forward to every single week.
Sure. So the mundane thing, and I don't think this is very revolutionary, but there's a lot of meetings. There's a lot of
Mm,
meetings um, that are necessary, and
mm.
there are some meetings, as we're finding out through the coronavirus, that can and probably should be taken care of via an email or a project management tool like Quip, or a chat tool like Chime.
Mm,
Those are Amazon specific tools that we use to collaborate with our different teams. So
mm,
it's especially important for me because my direct manager, her name's Amy. She lives in New York, and she works
mm,
out of New York. And so we get to talk in our weekly one-on-ones, but we a lot of times talk via video.
mm,
And so the mundane stuff, I think, is, yeah, there's a lot of meetings that can be sort of repetitive. But a lot of those come from the top, and it's more like announcements. I think when you work at a
mm,
large company like Amazon, it's tough to communicate with 500,000 people,
mm,
and it's a really difficult challenge that our leader Andy Jassy, CEO of AWS, that he has, is how do you get 500,000 people all rowing in the same direction? How do you get them to align and communicate really effectively? And one of the mechanisms that AWS and Amazon as a whole has implemented to try to solve this is the leadership principles. So the
mm.
leadership principles are a set list of values. It's no secret. You can Google them. There's a bunch of YouTube videos on it, and I think they're really great in setting the foundation for how we all work together. Some of them include customer obsession, um, uh, always be learning, like always be curious, and dive deep, deliver results. These are adages that we all talk about every
Mm,
single day, and that we really live by, that help unite us and
mm,
help us make decisions in our daily roles. So I guess to answer your question, yeah, the mundane stuff I think would be the meetings. The cool stuff that I get to do, the coolest part of my role is all the new services. So
mm,
if you don't know much about cloud, it's vast
mm,
and it's infinite.
mm,
There's this big shift going on with companies right now where they are moving their on-premise servers, and they have all their data and systems in these physical data centers,
mm,
and they're trying to move all these their
mm,
workloads and their applications to the cloud. And it's a massive undertaking. There's millions of dollars of migration costs. And so companies need to be really thoughtful and strategic about how they think through the decision of when do they go to the cloud, how fast do they need to go to the cloud,
mm.
and those decisions are happening and becoming even more important, every single day.
That's something that we should break down. So back in the days, tons of data storage, like in your USB, used to be able to only carry like 2 GB or even less than that.
I had one in college. It was 128 KB.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that's like
It's like one Microsoft Word document.
one message
Yeah.
that you receive in your Microsoft Word. So then now, storage of data and different, like when you download your video games on your phone, that requires storage. And a lot of companies are operating on physical storage. So then AWS allows people to bring it to the cloud, which is a big fancy word to store data in the virtual, in the on the internet, essentially. And they have the structure to support that. And that's essentially your job, is to be able to convert a lot of these physical storage companies and then bringing it to the cloud. So that's what the cloud is.
Yep, exactly. And the cloud is, I've seen them. These data centers. Some of them are hundreds and thousands of
Mm,
square footage underneath the earth. A lot of times they're submerged so that they aren't prone to any alien attacks or earthquakes or anything like that. And it's just these massive server farms that
mm,
are the size of small football stadiums
geez.
underneath the ground, and they're all
Yeah.
climate controlled, and they take a lot of power to run these things. But that's what powers, when you go on your phone and you go watch Netflix, it's all running on an Amazon server. And I'm sure everybody here who is been watching a lot of Netflix like I have lately, you start to wonder, okay, how can this many people be watching Netflix at the same time? And, my Planet Earth show still streams perfectly. That's because of the redundancy and the elasticity that the cloud enables.
Mm. That's a really good explanation. So what's next? I mean, this is what you're doing at Amazon now, and I guess are you looking to stay for a long time? Why and why not? Or like, where is next for you?
Sure. I'm pretty happy at Amazon. They treat us really well. I really enjoy the people I work with, and the projects that we're working on are important. We really care about our customers' success. And so, these moving to the cloud is difficult. It's a tough thing to plan for. And it takes a lot of change from a business process management perspective. I know that's kind of like a big fancy consulting term, but that just means a lot of people need to change a lot about their daily job, and change is tough. So yeah, I feel like the work Amazon is doing and AWS is doing is really important right now. So no, I'm not looking to change much. I'm pretty happy. I do think I would like to get more involved. It's all in a small business at some point. So I did become a partner in a small sailing business here in Boston that I had an opportunity to join. It's like I said, sailing is a passion of mine, and I had a couple friends that were looking for an investor and a partner with kind of my skill set in sales and operations. And so, as of November of last year, we all kind of joined together and bought out this franchise. It's called Sail Time. It's going pretty well. So it's not enough to do full time. It's kind of just like a side nights and weekends kind of project.
Yeah.
But it's fun. I'm getting to see what it's like kind of running a small business, kind of like you're doing, Tuan, and thinking through how we can help our customers, who are people in Boston that are trying to spend more time on the water.
Yeah. I mean, that's very sort of like, that's one of the things that a lot of people miss, is the fact that they don't know how business runs, right? So every single engine, there's a salesperson, there's the marketing person, each aspect used to be like maybe from one person or two people or three people at the very beginning when building a small organization. They have to do everything. And then as they grow, they can hire the employees to be able to take care of that small function. So at the very beginning, it's very, the responsibility is giant. And, you keep doing it over and over again. I mean, your story is about, starting from scratch, working for free, just so that you can have that learning, and it's now have produced great results.
Yeah, and you'll hear people talk about wearing multiple hats. That's what they mean, in a company like ScholarJet. I'm sure you are writing content one day, you're interviewing people for your podcast the next day, you're thinking through your hiring forecast the next day, you're trying to raise money the next day and go to a networking event. And the nice thing about all of those things is you're not necessarily getting paid when you publish that blog post or publish this podcast. No one's going to give you a check for $20. Mm-hmm. When you go to a networking event, there's no guarantee you're going to meet somebody that could potentially be your next co-founder. Mm-hmm. So that's some other advice that I think I would give myself, a younger version of myself, is plant some seeds for yourself, and plant a lot of them, because most of them won't turn into anything. But, maybe if you plant 10, one of those seeds will grow. And invest in relationships. Like, call people back, reach out to people you haven't talked to in a while. Just because they can't help you tomorrow with your problem, like, always try to help them and try your best to lift other people up as much as possible. I know it sounds kind of corny and cliche, but karma is a real thing. And if you are constantly looking for ways to help people, I promise you it will work out in your favor. And you never know where people will go next. So always be nice to people you work with. You never know if they're going to be working for you or next to you or above you or be your boss. So be nice to people, always be willing to help and pitch in and try your best, especially early on in your career, to go above and beyond regardless of what your role is, and always just try to take on more and more responsibility if that's what you want.
That's very powerful. I think that's sort of like demystify the fact that people are in tech who are like super genius, sort of assholes to people all the time. Like, you're the complete opposite. You lead with empathy, and you always want to give first. And so this is amazing, which leads me to the last question. During the time that we are in right now, what do you have a message for the people right now?
Oh, geez, that's a good question, but I don't know. I'm not an expert. You know, I've tried my best to, it's like a tough motion, right? You want to be informed, and you want to be on social media and be on Facebook, but then there's just a lot happening there. So I've been kind of quarantining myself, like I think a lot of people have. I'm very fortunate that I have a job that enables me to work from home and is flexible with schedules. So that's really cool. There's a couple tech companies in Boston that are laying people off, and it's really sad because it's tough. It's tough for a lot of industries. The travel industry has been really affected. Obviously, the hospitality and restaurant industry. My heart goes out to them. I've got a lot of good friends that run restaurants, and I'm doing my best to support them with gift cards and awareness. I went and gave blood yesterday.
Oh yeah, me too. Me too. It's like 2 days ago.
People need it. People need it now more than ever. So, just in these uncertain times, I think if you are a hard worker, if you are curious and you are passionate about something, whether it's wine or helping people get jobs like you, Tuan, or if it's technology or websites, there's always a job out there for you. And young people now, I think they're really lucky. You can create a really cool brand for yourself that you couldn't do 10 years ago. You can start a podcast like Tuan's doing. You can, go on your Instagram channel and start your own channel for something. Start your own Facebook group. Try to add value though. Try to make sure you're bringing like-minded people together, and make sure it's something you actually care about, because if it's not something you care about, you're going to lose interest really quick. There is this tendency with entrepreneurs to be that ADD type mentality, right? You're always kind of like trying to getting distracted very easily. So as long as it's something that you're passionate about, that you can wake up every day and be really curious about, and you're trying to find mentors, and you're open to working for free and investing that sweat equity like we talked about earlier. It's a big opportunistic world out there, and there's a lot of different ways that you can get ahead and find your dream job.
All right. Well, thank you, Brian. Really appreciate this. Very, very powerful lessons. A lot of value that you just gave to our audience today. So thank you. And once again, please stay safe and continue to doing what you're doing. This is wonderful.
Cool.